Hello, I am Shalkiel of the Keystone Human Services International Board. Welcome to the Keystone Human Services June Summit here at the wonderful Central Penn College Conference Center. Our panelists will be here in a minute, but first let me thank you for coming and just a few housekeeping items. The restrooms are right outside this room. Today's event is being live streamed, so please be aware of the open microphone in the middle of the room. And there's food and refreshments available in the back of the room after the panel session. Thank you, and we will now welcome our panelists. Enjoy.
So welcome, everybody.
Hi. Good evening, everybody. I would like to introduce us. We were doing I'm a little nervous. This is my first time doing this. We were doing the Keystone Service June Summit. My name is Bill Kratz. I am the advocacy coordinator up here at Keystone Service. And aside of me is my friend and my coworker, Genevieve.
Thank you, Bill. So I'm Genevieve Fitzgibbon. I'm the Deputy Director for Keystone Human Services International. And we're really thrilled to be here with you all tonight and with all of our panelists. So welcome to all of you, and thank you. We also wanted to acknowledge that this event is being live streamed, and we have colleagues and family and friends joining us from many different places around the world. So we want to welcome all of you as well via our webcast. Thank you all for being here.
Me and Genevieve will be your MCs. We have a lot of people from a lot of places. Our panel comes from different parts of the world. Some people come from Moldova, some people come from Peru, some people come from Australia, even here in Pennsylvania in the United States.
And right here from Keystone, even. Speaking of, Bill, why don't you tell us a little bit about your role here as the advocacy coordinator at Keystone? We'd really be interested in, I think, hearing about the community advocacy that you do, the support that you do with people. Tell us a little bit about your role at Keystone.
Thank you very much. My name is Bill Kratz. I'm the advocacy coordinator here at Keystone Service. It seems like I've worked here for years, but it's only been a couple months. My job and my role is to teach people with intellectual disability, like myself, would you believe that? To live in a community, to get what they need from our agency. To teach them how to empower themselves, to be a self-advocate, to know what's out there for them when they need it, who to turn to, somebody they can respect, somebody who understands to be a person with a disability just like yourself.
Thank you, Bill. We're glad to have you on the team, and I wanted to say a little bit more about Bill Kratz. Bill lives in Philadelphia, where he has been a really strong advocate for people with disabilities to ensure their civil rights and equal access to all aspects of life in the community. He's been especially a strong advocate for making sure that people with intellectual disabilities and autism are not left out of the advocacy and inclusion work in some of the cross-disability work that he's been doing. And that's a really important piece to make sure that everyone has a seat at the table. Bill was placed in special education classes at a young age due to his developmental disability, and he felt controlled and contained in that situation, and he fought to be awarded a high school diploma like his peers. He's now on the Independent Monitoring for Quality Statewide Management Committee for the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services. He's the proud recipient of a Roland Johnson Award from Self Advocates Becoming Empowered, the highly regarded Justin Dart Award for Advocacy, and a grant for autism advocacy and support from the Philadelphia Autism Project. And Bill also appeared in the 2016 I Go Home documentary about how institutionalization has affected people and their lives throughout the United States who have intellectual disabilities. And we're just really glad to have Bill on our team, and I've been very appreciative to learn from him and to be collaborating with him over these past several months.
Well, thank you very much, Genevieve. So when we got together, me and Genevieve, we thought, how can we get people together? And we thought it was June Summit. So tell our audience, what did we talk about? The many nights, you know, she missed her husband, I missed my mother.
You want me to tell them a little bit about all our planning? So, you know, I would love to do that, Bill. Thank you very much. And let me start by telling a little bit about Keystone Human Services, because that's a part of the story. So I've been working for Keystone for about 13 years now. And Keystone Human Services, many of you in the room are familiar with, but some of you are not. So I just want to tell a little bit about our background and our mission. Keystone Human Services was founded on the idea that all people should have the opportunity to be included and respected members of the community, that no one should be locked away in institutions or segregated from other members of society, in special schools or separate congregate work settings, or in living situations that are away and apart from everyday life. The values that are at the core of everything that we do are to support people to have the best chance of living the life of their choice with the right types of supports to succeed. Inclusive and diverse communities are important to everyone. Listening to the voices and experiences from all backgrounds, identities, and life experiences helps us to understand our world and ourselves. And as we all work together to create a more equal society in which everyone is heard, it is so important that everyone has a say in the decisions that impact their lives. Too often, decisions are being made without the input of those most affected by those decisions. This is an issue that impacts people right here in our community and around the entire world. So something else about Keystone is that we have programs in the United States. We have for 50 years nearly, but also in the Republic of Moldova. We have a registered organization nearly 20 years now. We're going on 20 years in Moldova, and more recently in India. And Keystone participates in the annual meetings of the Conference of States Parties to the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities at the United Nations in New York City every June. And our friends from Inclusion International and the Council for Intellectual Disability and many other advocacy organizations, NGOs, nonprofit organizations, governments are there at the UN talking about how do we continue to move forward with the rights of people with disabilities. And so that brings us back to this June Summit. And with this inaugural June Summit, Keystone Human Services is bringing a bit of this global disability rights conversation to Harrisburg. So over 3 days, we're talking and learning together about why it's important to include people with intellectual disability and for them to be in charge of the choices that influence their own lives. And just really focusing on why keeping the voices of people with intellectual disability at the front is critical to what we do, why we're all doing this together. why we thought the June Summit was important, and really to figure ways to bring the global to the local.
Well, thank you very much to tell our audience what we did. But first, before we go to our panel, talk about them, we would like to thank some people who helped us put this together.
Indeed. So many people have been a part of making this happen, and it has been an absolute gift in how many people rallied around, because when Bill and I first started talking about this, we thought, oh, I don't know if it's a good idea or not, and we're talking with a few of our other colleagues, but so many people captured us and said, here's an idea, here's something to add in, could you make the June Summit be about this? We love this idea, so it really uplifted us and inspired us. And I don't know if Eric Faulkner is here tonight, but in any case, he, KPMG, I want to give a big shout out to. They're our primary sponsor for this event. Without them, we couldn't have done most of this, or at least not as glamorously. And so they've been a really great supporter. So thank you to KPMG for being our lead sponsor. We also wanted to thank our content partners and expert consultants with Inclusion International and the Council for Intellectual Disability, who you'll learn more about tonight, who not only have representation on this panel, but they've been at the core of developing the 3 days of workshops that are happening for self-advocates throughout Keystone, and different workshops that we're all taking part of. A number of emerging disability advocates are partaking and have been nominated to engage with, as well as the inclusive discussions and workshops that Keystone Direct Support Professionals Management and leadership staff are going to participate in together. We also wanted to thank our board. Keystone Human Services International board stepped to the plate and allowed us to be able to have a reception afterwards by sponsoring a reception for after this event. So we welcome you all to join us afterward for some continued discussion and getting to know each other a bit better. But just really do want to recognize Don Whitman, Michelle Keogh, Dr. Robert Coleman, Sudhir Kumar, Dennis Felty, Dr. Michele Tantardini, Craig Ray, Paul Smith, Adam Thielman, Joanne Osman, Joanna Macari, Hannah Copenhaver, Richard Thorne, Charlie Hooker, and Tracy Murphy. Thank you so much for your continued advocacy and support as well, and for believing that things like this are important and continuing to encourage us. I also want to thank our advocacy committee and our advisory committee and planning committee. And if I name everyone, we'll probably forget many, but I do want to say that all of the people who have been involved with this are listed in the program. They're here helping with the technical support. I definitely wanted to give a shout out to Madeline Dehart, who I think is even still kind of personing the table in the back, because she has been absolutely coordinating all of the different angles of this. So thank you to everyone for being a part of helping us plan and giving us some great ideas to make this come together. So last thing I think I should say is that the Keystone Moldova team really came from so far and put a lot of effort and energy into this, and our senior leadership team as well. They have a pretty sincere commitment to inclusion work and toward improving how we do that every day. It's not easy, and we need to continue learning from each other, and that's a part of Bill's role to help us keeping on thinking about those things. And especially to Charlie Hooker, our president and CEO, for trusting us and supporting this effort. So thank you to everyone, and thank you to all of you for being here.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, our first guest speaker, roughly speaking, is Daniel. And Daniel's not that far down the road, here in Pennsylvania, Lancaster. So Daniel, but before we get Daniel to talk about himself, we're going to tell you about him, that we know about him.
Yeah, we'd like to tell you a little bit about Daniel. So Daniel Castellanos is the first person with an intellectual disability to attend and graduate from Millersville University. And that set the stage for many others to follow in his footsteps through the Integrated Studies program. He currently works full-time as a cook at the Press Room Restaurant in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Daniel recognizes the importance of inclusive education. In 2017, he was invited to speak to representatives in Washington, D.C. on the reauthorization of the Higher Education Act regarding the importance of higher education for all people. He was also interviewed by WITF, which is a local public television radio stations, and he's featured in their 2018 documentary called Going Home. So Daniel, we're going to turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. I'm honored to be a part of such a talented panel of speakers, each role modeling many capabilities and passions. I'd like to share with you for a few moments some experiences I have had in the area of education, which have deeply impacted and shaped my life. I'd like to talk to you tonight about 3 key concepts, which I believe are essential to thinking about inclusive higher learning. We'll explore the value of high expectations, how education provides a bedrock of knowledge to navigate the world, and how integrated campuses open the door to social engagement. Let's begin with establishing a need for high expectations. For many people living with intellectual disabilities, low expectations have kept us on the outside of all that our nation's educational system has to offer. We have been kept apart from the typical schedules of the day, apart from the classes that instill the most vital information, and apart from the rest of the student body. My first experience with low expectation was during my time in high school. I attended a life skills class. During high school, I met some students from Millersville University and was taken with how they described their college experience of how a wide open campus and a surplus of opportunities. During an IEP meeting with professionals and educators who were gathered to support my learning, I said that I wanted to go to Millersville University. They quickly informed me that people with intellectual disabilities cannot go to college. They told me it was against regulations. My team of paid professionals presented me with 2 options: get a job or go to a disability college. Some of you may be familiar with such places. Many of these segregated schools have little of the campus life to offer. A fellow student told me about their experience touring one of those schools. It has 1 classroom, 1 gym, 1 cafeteria, one dorm, 1 faculty room, all in 1 building. There was no opportunity learning in areas like math, science, and reading. The power of people's low expectation for my life and education were making my options limited. I quickly decided this was not for me, so I made a decision. I told the educators I'll get a job as soon as I get accepted to Millersville University. I had bigger dreams and higher expectations for myself than what others were able to see. Then one day, I was sitting on my couch playing video games when my mother walked into the house and asked if I would come into her room. I thought I was in trouble, but I didn't remember doing anything wrong. I followed her into the room anxiously. She turned to me and said, "Do you remember when you told me you wanted to go to Millersville University?" "Yes," I said. "Well, guess what? You are going to Millersville University as part of part of a class of 2016. I was overwhelmed with joy. Soon after our conversation, I met Thomas Newville, and he told me all about the new integrated studies program that he was putting together at the college. He told me, you could be the first person with an intellectual disability to study at Millersville and be the change for the state of Pennsylvania. And that sounded much better for people who have high expectations. For me, gave me the courage to reach for more. The reason that high expectations are so important, particularly in education, is closely connected to my second point, which is that a good education provides a bedrock of knowledge we all use to navigate the world. For years, I was kept from the kind of learning that has provided to be most essential to living life. My experience at Millersville opened my eyes and mind to the need for all people to have access to good education. During my college years, I was exposed to many classes which taught me a number of important skills and crucial knowledge. I'll list them to give you a sense of what I'm talking about. I took an acting class, which introduced me to taking risks, trying new things, building confidence. I also took a public speaking class where I learned that public speaking can be conversational. You don't need to have a bunch of tricks up your sleeve, and you don't need to picture everyone naked. It taught me how to tune out the noise when speaking and how to craft a good speech. I took sociology of the family and learned about healthy family lifestyle and dysfunctional lifestyle. I learned about family economies, cost of living, and how the world works. I took a U.S. history where I learned the context of how we came to America. I learned about old history as well as current events, which helped me to understand that there are still problems in the world, how discrimination still exists. And it makes me want to tell the world that people with disabilities are human too. It makes me want to challenge people who are trying to define normal. Because I know that all people are different and everyone has something to contribute to the world. I took an entrepreneurship class and learned about owning a business, how to develop ideas that are profitable, how to investments, develop a business plan, how to copyright work and trademark. I took math, actual math, not special math. And I was provided much more knowledge that I will need. Things like geometry, percentage, and division. I took theater appreciation, acting 2, love songs, and popular music, and introduction to sociology, and of course on wellness. All of these classes helped me to grow and gave me a more in-depth understanding life. In college, I was required to do an internship, just like most college students. My internship at Millersville grew into a full-time job at one of the most prominent restaurants in Lancaster City. Little did I know, while I was applying for the internship, the president of the university, who was good friends with the restaurant owner, put in a good word for me. These kinds of connections, opportunities, and educational experiences gave me a way to sustain a healthy lifestyle after graduation. I had so many opportunities to develop skills and knowledge that I use in everyday life by having access to difficult classes with a wide variety of students. I benefited from the networks of my fellow students, my professors, even my administrators, in the same way that we all rely on such knowledge and networks to get ahead in the world. Which brings me to my final point. Integrated campuses open doors to social engagement. I remember my first day on campus when I went to orientation and saw people playing games, having fun, and I was a part of that. And in my special education class, in high school, all of the people with disability stayed together. I barely knew any of the students in my school. So I would stay in the classroom and often felt alone. But living on campus got me walking around, running into people who I got to know. I spent a lot of time at the Student Memorial Center, otherwise known as the SMAC. The first two friends I made were Jordan Myers and Tyler G. Jordan helped to tutor me so that I could succeed in class. And before I knew it, we were good friends. I met Josh and Austin in my acting class, Nicole in theater appreciation. I met Kristen through my internship at the press room. The first day of class, I didn't really know what to do. I didn't know how to do the online work. But by being in class with a variety of people with lots of different skill sets, I was able to meet people who share their knowledge. A lot of fellow students were helping me out and making sure I was learning the online system. I joined in order to make it through this semester. I joined Cinemart, a drama club on campus. It was so interesting to see how theater works. So I started to attending shows of my fellow acting students, which got me talking to them more. You know, in life skills class, they tried to teach us social skills, but we were kept away from the other students. So we didn't have many people to socialize with. But I learned lots of social skills on campus, hanging out with lots of students and grabbing a cup of coffee with friends. Pretty soon, I was joining lots of clubs. The SOLA Club, which was an organization for Latino affairs. The University's Activities Board, where we plan events on campus. ACMO, which is the all-campus musical organization. All these classes, clubs, and activities connected me to meaningful relationships and opportunities that I never experienced. They also gave me opportunities to share my gifts and contribute in unique ways. It has connected me to speaking engagement, a decent job, opportunities to see new places and a platform to advocate for change. These are the kinds of benefits that all people in society need access to. So our expectation must be high. We should expect that all people can benefit from higher education because all people need access to the knowledge that allows us to live and move in the world. And all people require opportunities to form relationships and contribute to their society. Toward the end of my time at Millersville, Thomas Newville pulled me aside and said, "You've been setting a positive example. And now many parents want to bring their sons and daughters to Millersville University. Having gone to college in a truly integrated way has allowed me a position to stand for my people in a way that Martin Luther King Jr. and other advocates who have stood for their people. So here I stand before you on behalf of people with intellectual disabilities to say that all people deserve the right to a good integrated education with an expectation that they will go to college and succeed in the world." Thank you.
and they just shoot. At least he got what he wanted, and he did what he wanted to do, and go to college and fulfill his dreams. And remember, no matter if you have a disability or not, you can do it. Thank you, Daniel, for that.
Thank you.
So now our next speaker will be Diana, and she comes from the country of Moldova.
So I'm going to tell a little bit about Diana as well. Diana Zegrea from the Republic of Moldova. She's been trying to get me to practice the pronunciation of her last name, and I don't know if I've got it quite on spot, but Diana believes that people with disabilities should live in the community, not in institutions.
Yeah.
She now works in a village kindergarten in Moldova, and she loves her job working with the children and the other staff. From 2002 to 2015, Diana lived in an institution where she was denied most of her rights. She had no friends, and she was highly discriminated against. Within 2 years of leaving the institution with support from Keystone, Moldova, Diana joined the self-advocacy group, where she learned everything that she could about the rights of people with disabilities. Diana has participated in several events where she shared her story and advocated for the social inclusion of all people. And I also wanted to let everyone know that Diana will be speaking in Romanian tonight, and her colleague, or my colleague, and her support person, Parascovia Munteneu, will be translating her words for us into English. So please, Diana.
Vă mulțumim că m-ați invitat. Că m-ați invitat pe aici. De 20 de ani care am trăit în internat, eu la copilăria. Mi-au limitat alegerile și mi-au suplat pozițiile.
Thank you very much for inviting me here to share with you my experience about living in institution and in the community. 20 years of living in institution stolen my childhood, limited my choices and blown my dreams.
Amintirile mele din internat sunt despre frică, bătai cuvinte urâte și cuvinte urâte și o bezduire.
My memory from institution are about fear, violence, discrimination, bullying, obedience.
În internat mi-a la frică să spun ce gândesc. În comunitate sunt stăpână pe viața mea.
In the institution, I was afraid to say what I think. In the community, I'm the master of my life.
În internat, legea nu mă apăra. Am fost lipsită de capacitatea colegală.
In the institution, the law did not protect me. I was deprived by my legal capacity in institution.
În internat, am fost obișnuită și nimeni nu mă lua în seamă. În comunitate sunt văzută cu respect și demnitate.
In institution, I was humiliated and ignored. In the community, I am treated with respect and dignity.
Până mă numeau pe nume, îmi spuneau Zgherea. Toată lumea îmi spune Diana și mie asta îmi place.
In the institution, I wasn't called by my name. Everyone told me Zgherea, by my family name. In community, everyone calls me Diana, and that fact makes me feel loved.
În, nu aveam voie să ies după poartă. În comunitate sunt liberă ca să ies unde vreau eu.
In the institution, I wasn't allowed to go outside of the institution gate. In the community, I am free to go where I want.
În, nu am putut să învăț. În comunitate am învățat să fiu bucătar, să știu cum să fac mâncare și să aranjez masa.
In the institution, I had no chance to benefit of vocational education. In the community, I have learned how to prepare the food and how to serve the meal to others.
Nu mă plăteau pentru lucrul pe care îl făcea. În comunitate sunt respectate și primesc pe salariu pentru munca mea.
In the institution, my work was not paid. In community, my work is respected and I'm paid for our work I do.
În internat, păi mă simțeam singură. În comunitate am mulți cunoscuți, am mulți cunoscuți și prieteni.
In the institution, I felt alone. In the community, I got a lot of friends.
În internat nu puteam să invit pe cineva la un ceas. În comunitate, eu invit pe cineva la un ceas sau la o cafea.
In the institution, I had no opportunity to invite guests. Since I live in the community, I often have guests and always serve them something.
Persoane cu dizabilități din internate nu cunosc de ce trebuie să bea medicamentele și nu pot făcă să aleagă. În comunitate eu merg la centru de sănătate care este pentru toți. Eu știu de ce trebuie să iau medicamentele.
The persons of intellectual disability from institution are not informed about the purpose of their medication and have no opportunity to choose the treatment. In the community, I use the mainstream health services. I know what kind of medication I take and for what I take.
Persoanele din internat suferă de boli mentale. Ele au nevoie de psiholog. Acest specialist nu sunt în internate.
Persons of intellectual disabilities in institution have poor mental health, and in many cases they need counseling and therapies provided by psychologists or behavioral specialists. These personnel are not in the staff structure of the institutions.
Păi Moldova, sănătate, drepturile sexuale a persoanelor cu dizabilități nu sunt văzute cu ochii buni. Se spune că persoane cu dizabilități nu au drepturi la sexuale.
In Moldova, the sexual activity of persons of intellectual disabilities in institutions are discouraged and sometimes not allowed.
Lucrătorii nu vorbesc despre drepturi la sănătate sexuală. Păi și ei nu știu cum, pe aceste drepturi.
In institution, the staff do not offer regular sexual health education and information. They have no skills and knowledge to be engaged with issue of sexual rights.
Femeile cu dizabilități care trăiesc în internate nu au intimitate. Sunt deseori abuzate de faptele cu forța să nu rămână grave. Femeile care nu ascultă sunt închise în izolator.
Women with intellectual disabilities who are still living in institution are cases of neglect, violence, forced abortion, forced medication, restraint, and sexual abuse.
De când trăiesc în comunitate, eu nu mă gândesc numai la mine, mă gândesc și la alte 2000 de persoane. Eu vreau ca să le schimb viața lor.
Being part of the community, I do not think only of myself. I started to advocate for other 2,000 people with intellectual disabilities who continue to live in the residential institution. I want to change their life.
Am devenit un membru al grupului de autoreprezentant cu acest grup pentru drepturile persoanele cu dizabilități.
I became a member of self-advocacy group at community level. Being part of advocacy group, we are promoting the rights of the people with intellectual disability.
Eu știu că Moldova voi asemna Convenția pentru drepturile persoane cu dizabilități. Acest document voi impune statul să ne respecte drepturile.
I know that Moldova ratified the CRPD. The CRPD requires to our state to ensure the right to be included in the community.
Păi Moldova are politici bune pe hârtie. Dar de ce persoane cu dizabilități continuă să trăiască în internate? Noi cerem guvernul din Moldova să închidă mai repede internatele, ca persoane cu dizabilități să se bucure la dai în comunitate.
Moldova has good policy for deinstitutionalization, but why persons with intellectual disabilities continue to live in big long-term institutions? We require to Moldova government to advance the institutionalization and close all institutions.
Eu sper că comitetul va cere guvernul să închidă mai repede internatele. Noi, cu grupul de autoreprezentanți, putem să ajutăm persoanele cu dizabilități internate să cunoască dreptul și să le spunem cum este viața în comunitate.
We count on the support of UN committee to convince Moldovan government to close all institutions. We, as an advocacy group, will continue the empowerment of the persons with intellectual disabilities to know their rights and to explain them how it is to live in the community.
Noi putem discuta din comunitate să schimbi părerea despre persoane cu dizabilități, să nu le fie frică de noi. Suntem aici noi și avem drepturi.
We are committed to contribute to change the public attitudes towards persons with intellectual disabilities. Do not be afraid of us. We are human and we have equal rights.
Persoanele cu dizabilități din internate au nevoie de ajutorul nostru. Ei nu cunosc ce înseamnă drepturi, ce înseamnă viață în comunitate.
I know that the people with intellectual disabilities need our support. They don't know how it is to live a full life in the community. They need our support right now, no later.
Pentru a promova dreptul în comunitate am fost rămas la New York la conferința statelor care au semnat Convenția pentru drepturile persoane cu dizabilități.
To advance community living of people with intellectual disabilities, last week I have participated in New York at the Conference of State Parties where we discussed about CRPD.
Acolo am discutat cu mai multe persoane. Catalina, Alana, Susan, toți mi-au susținut ideea mea de a închide internate și de a da șansa persoane cu dizabilități să trăiască în comunitate.
At the conference, I have discussed about the rights of the people with intellectual disabilities with many important people. Catalina de Vandas Aguilar, Special Rapporteur, Alana, Sue, Robert, Galina. All of them support my idea on the institutionalization and community living of persons with intellectual disabilities.
Participarea mea a fost de la New York și de aici este necesară pentru a încuraja mai multe persoane cu dizabilități să promoveze dreptul la trai în comunitate. Să facă mai puternici persoane cu dizabilități ca să vorbească despre dreptul lor.
My participation in New York and at this summit is very important to enable my peers to promote their rights and to make choices on how and where to live. I hope that my personal story will empower people with intellectual disabilities around the world to defend their rights.
Bine, thank you very much.
Times we're hearing the CRPD and the cost and what does all that stuff mean, and we talked about it real briefly at the beginning, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So I don't want to hold us up and slow us down, but just to say that it's an important international treaty that we would love to talk to you all more about how that's impacting us in the reception afterward as we're networking. So ask us some good questions about that if you're curious.
Thank you, Genevieve, for that. So we would like to thank Diane for sharing our dreams, be so brave to talk about being lived in an institution. Because how many of us really never lived in an institution, never had the freedom or have rights to go out in the community? People telling you what to do, telling you what you can eat, how you can dress, how you can act. You have no friends. The institution says, we're your friends, but they're not. Thanks, Diane, for sharing this with us. I like being there and being so bravely about it. Thank you. Well, our next speaker comes from down under. You know what that is? So our friend Kylie will talk about her experience. But before we talk about, get her up here to talk.
Can we say a few words about it?
Yeah.
All right, I'm happy to. So Kylie Roberts is the Inclusion Projects Manager at the Council for Intellectual Disabilities. It's in New South Wales in Australia. And her colleague, Alana Julian, was at the UN with us last week as well. She had an emergency and had to return home and unfortunately can't be here with us tonight. But we've asked Kylie, we're glad that she could be here with us, and we asked if she would say a few words in Alana's place and also on behalf of the Council for Intellectual Disability. So thank you, Kylie.
Hi everyone, I'm Kylie, and as Bill said, I am from the land down under, but don't hold that against me. Thank you for inviting me to speak tonight. I am here on behalf of Alana, who unfortunately couldn't make it. We both work for the Council for Intellectual Disability, but sometimes we call it CID for short. So you may see that or hear me say that through this. CID is a disability rights organisation led by people with intellectual disability, and we are based in Sydney in Australia. For more than 60 years, we've been working to make the community more inclusive and to make sure all people with intellectual disability are valued. We speak up on the big issues, we provide information and learning opportunities, and we empower people and communities. We work with and for people with intellectual disability to make sure that their rights are protected, that everybody is included, and that people are supported well. Inclusion is a big part of everything we do at CID. More than half our board members have an intellectual disability, and as there are lots of rules that go along with being a board member, the board members are supported by a board participation worker, and her role is to make sure that everyone does the right thing in their role and makes good decisions on behalf of CID. Alana unfortunately couldn't be here to speak with you, but I do want to let you know that she was the first permanent employee of CID with an intellectual disability, which she is very proud of. And since she started, we've also got Ben, who has come along to join our team in a permanent role as well. Both Alana and Ben bring a new perspective to our everyday workplace. They make us more inclusive just by being in the room with us. Alana and I work together on a project called Inclusion Point. We teach people how to include people with intellectual disability, how to use respectful language, and how to make information accessible for everyone. We run information sessions for people with intellectual disability on subjects they want to know about. Topics at the moment are things like consumer rights, good mental health, and safety on social media. And we do try to use easy read in everything we do. At CID, we work from a human rights approach. For many years in Australia as well, people with a disability were treated from a medical model. And that means everyone wanted to fix their disability. Because of that, a lot of people were put into institutions, they were not part of families, and they were not part of communities. They were invisible and forgotten. They didn't have a voice, and they were often treated very badly, as Diana has shared. Alana always says that her disability is only one part of her, and she knows how important it is for her to be able to speak up for herself and for others. The work we do is focused on the rights of people with disabilities and that they have the same rights as everyone else, Like Daniel talked about, other people's attitudes create barriers. A lack of respect or low expectations means people don't understand that people with intellectual disability can have a job and can be part of the community. Everyone needs support to do their job, and Alana and our other employees with intellectual disability always have participation support with them. That's my role, although Alana's not here. The participation support person is like a meeting assistant. We make sure that they're prepared for the meeting, that the minutes and the agenda are in an accessible format that they can understand. We make sure they get there on time, that they can find the building. And then we make sure when they're actually sitting in the meeting that their appearance there is not a tokenistic thing, that they can actually get their point across well within the meeting. As we all know, meetings go fast and sometimes it's not easy to get your point across. Good participation support can break down barriers so everyone is included. Alana is also currently a part of the Australian Shadow Reporting Group on the Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. So Australia also has signed and ratified this convention in 2008, and this year we have to report back to the UN on how we're doing. They will be sending their report in September, and they will be reporting some really good things, but they'll also be reporting on things that we can do so much better. Disability advocates like Alana advocate for herself and other people with a disability. Alana learned to speak up for herself and now has the privilege of speaking up for many others with her work across Australia and at the UN last week. Alana also does work in systemic advocacy at CID, and this means we speak up for people who have common issues or take action on their behalf. We work together to get long-term social change, to make sure the rights of people with disabilities are upheld through legislation, policies and practices. Our advocacy team worked very hard this year in Australia to get better healthcare for people with intellectual disability. Our campaign was called End Deadly Disability Discrimination, and I always falter, there's a few too many Ds in that. Our Health Counts. In Australia, People with intellectual disability die 27 years younger than everyone else. 27 years, that's pretty awful. And 38% of people who have died with an intellectual disability were misdiagnosed. So that means they were treated differently, no one listened to them, and all because of their disability. That needs to stop. Alana and others at CID went and talked to politicians, asked them to fix this problem and save lives. Because everyone deserves good health and a long life, right? Everyone. People with intellectual disability sometimes need that help to speak up, and sometimes they have no one to help them. So that is why advocacy is so important. Advocacy means that everyone has a voice, and we should be able to have a voice about things that matter to us. The last point I want to make, or Alana wanted to make, was about accessible information, as this is vital for people with, to have choice and control in their lives. Easy Read helps Alana understand information, helps her have choice in her life. For example, we have Easy Read policies in our workplace at CID. So our complaints policy, for instance, is in Easy Read. That ensures that all employees understand the rules when they're at work. So what is Easy Read? It is information that is easy to read and understand, and that understand is the most important part of that. Easy Read isn't just for people with intellectual disability though. In Australia, 44% of people have can only read at an early high school level. So their literacy level, Easy Read can help them understand things as well. In Easy Read, we use everyday language like we would in a conversation. We only put in what people need to know, not all the nice stuff, the extra stuff. We write things in larger writing, have more space between the lines. We write a new sentence on a new line. This is processing time. When someone reads something, they can read one line and process that information and then understand it. And we usually have pictures to help people understand concepts as well. At CID, we love Easy Read, and so do all our members. They get a newsletter every, 4 times a year, and they love it. They love being included. So thank you again for inviting CID to come to Harrisburg and be part of this great event. We need to keep this conversation going about these issues around the world so no one will be left behind. Thank you.
About Easy Read, we're learning more and more about ways to make all sorts of things accessible. A lot of times when we think about accessibility, we think about physical accessibility. So you might think about ramps or wider doors, things like that. But when we're talking about cross-disability issues and we're talking about accessibility, we need to think about how do we make community, how do we make information accessible. And one of the things about accessibility is that when it's accessible for one person, it can be accessible for all people. So we are just starting to really practice a bit with that accessible, easy read information at Keystone with some support from our partners at CIT. We tried doing a program this time in Easy Read. It's probably not perfect, but it was an attempt and we are looking for feedback on that. So please note that that's available. And if we do it well, then that one program can be the program for everyone. So, Bill, you want to take us into our next?
Yeah, so we would like to thank
Kylie, thanks.
Kylie, thanks for that. So, like she said, nothing without us, right?
That's it.
So what our next speaker is Jaime, and he comes from Peru. But before he gets into this talk, my sidekick is going to tell you more about it and stuff.
Yes, I would love to.
Please do.
And it's fun being your sidekick, Bill. And it's never dull. So, Jaime Cruz is a member of Autogestores, a self-advocacy group in Peru. And it advocates for inclusion using the CRPD, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, as a motivator in local laws, and has successfully campaigned on the right to vote and the right to access health and insurance. In addition to his work there, Jaime is an Inclusion International Empower Us Fellow. And in this role, he connects and works with other advocates in the region to establish a Latin American self-advocacy network. Jaime feels that being an Empower Us Fellow is an opportunity for him to be to be a role model and to teach people with intellectual disability about their rights, including inclusion in education, employment, and living independently. And also wanted to note that Jaime will be speaking in Spanish, and his interpreter tonight is Daniela Gamboa, and hopefully if you in the room will understand both versions of that, but if not, Daniela will help us navigate with the English version. So please, Jaime.
Mi nombre es Jaime Cruz Camaita, tengo 24 años y vengo de Perú.
Hello, my name is Jaime Cruz Buscamaita. I'm 24 years old and I come from Peru.
Vivo con mis padres, mi hermana y mi mascota Mía.
I live with my parents, my sister, and my dog Mia.
Soy un actor.
I'm an actor.
Me gustan los deportes, yo nado, hago surf y voy al gimnasio.
I like sports. I swim, I surf, and I go to the gym.
También soy un autogestor.
I am also a self-advocate.
¿Qué es la autogestión?
What is self-advocacy?
La autogestión es cuando una persona con discapacidad intelectual levanta su voz y aboga por ella misma y por otros.
Self-advocacy is when a person with an intellectual disability speaks up and advocates for themselves and for others.
Un autogestor trabaja en hacer de su comunidad y un lugar más inclusivo.
A self-advocate works on making their community a more inclusive place.
Mi experiencia como autogestor.
My experience as a self-advocate.
Mi primera experiencia como autogestor fue cuando la Sociedad Peruana de Enfermedad me invitó a hablar sobre el derecho a tener una educación inclusiva.
My first experience as a self-advocate was when the Peruvian Down Syndrome Society invited me to talk about the right to have an inclusive education.
Me invitaron porque yo tuve una educación inclusiva. Además, tuve la experiencia de conocer al ministro de Educación en Perú.
I was invited because I had an inclusive education and I also had experience of working with the Secretary of Education in Peru.
Mi formación para convertirme en autogestor.
My training to become a self-advocate.
En el año 2016, mi apoyo, Patricia Andrade, me dijo que debería prepararme y estudiar sobre la convención.
In 2016, my support person, Patricia Andrade, which is in Peru, told me I should prepare myself and study about the Convention of the Rights of People with Disabilities.
Esto me ayudó a entender las leyes y barreras que enfrentaban otras personas con discapacidad intelectual.
This helped me to understand more about laws and barriers that people with intellectual disabilities face.
También pude estudiar en el Centro de Locución Oratoria de Gina Parker.
I also studied in Centro de Locución y Oratoria with Gina Parker.
Gina es una reportera en Perú que tiene un programa de televisión.
Gina is a reporter in Peru who has a TV show.
Ella me capacitó para organizar mis ideas y estar más preparado para hablar en público.
She trained me to organize my ideas and be more prepared for public conferences.
Autogestores en Perú.
Self-advocates in Peru.
Empecé a participar en el grupo de autogestores de la Sociedad Peruana de CRPD.
I started to participate in the self-advocate group at the Peruvian Down Syndrome Society.
Estamos en una campaña ni una menos del derecho a la mujer.
Here we're in a campaign of Ni Una Menos for the right of women.
Algunos logros de nuestro trabajo como autogestores.
Some success from our self-advocacy work.
Los autogestores de nuestro grupo han tenido muchos logros.
The self-advocates from our group have had many successes.
En el 2018, María Alejandra Villanueva recuperó el derecho al voto para 24.000 personas con discapacidad.
In 2018, María Alejandra Villanueva retrieved the right to vote for 24,000 persons with disabilities.
Sandra Service demandó una campaña de seguros por negarle a darle el mismo seguro de salud que le daban sus hermanos.
In 2012, Sandra Celi sued an insurance company after they denied her the same health insurance that they gave to their siblings.
Mi trabajo en educación inclusiva por Daniela Gamboa.
My work on inclusive education thanks to Daniela Gamboa.
Como autogestor, un tema muy importante para mí es el derecho a una educación inclusiva.
As a self-advocate, a topic that is very important for me is the right for inclusive education.
Yo trabajo sensibilizando sobre este derecho y capacitando a profesores, directores, familias y estudiantes.
I work on building awareness about this right and training teachers, principals, families, and students.
Nuestro trabajo como profesores y los medios de comunicación.
We also work as a self-advocates with the media.
Trabajamos mucho con los medios de comunicación en Perú. Aquí vemos una foto de Madrid Copy al derecho al consumidor.
We can see here a picture where we are in the radio talking about the right for consumers.
Aquí estamos en una entrevista en Radio Indicopy.
We are also in an interview here talking about our rights.
De hecho, el viernes pasado salí en el noticiero de la mañana en Perú.
In fact, last Friday and yesterday there were segments about me on 2 Peruvian news shows.
Estaban compartiendo mi trabajo en Naciones Unidas.
They were sharing my work at the UN.
El lema de los ODS es no dejar nadie atrás, y esto debe incluir a las personas con discapacidad.
The motto of the Sustainable Development Goals is leave no one behind, and this should include people with disabilities.
Por eso es importante que las personas con discapacidad intelectual sepan sobre los ODS y el trabajo que están haciendo en nuestros países sobre eso.
Because of this, it is important that people with an intellectual disability know about the goals and the work our countries are doing on them.
Nuestra guía también ha sido traducida al inglés para que los traductores internacionales puedan usarla.
We made an easy-to-read guide that you can find outside, and this guide has also been translated into English so that international self-advocates can use it.
¿Qué es inclusión internacional?
What is Inclusion International?
Inclusión internacional es de la red internacional de personas con discapacidad intelectual y sus familias.
Inclusion International is the international network of people with an intellectual disabilities and their families.
Mi organización, la SPCD y Keystone Human Service, son miembros de Inclusión Internacional.
My organization, the SPSD and Keystone Human Services, are both members of Inclusion International.
La cumbre global de autogestores.
I'm going to talk about the Global Self-Advocacy Summit.
Viajé a Birmingham en el Reino Unido para el Congreso Mundial de Inclusión Internacional, donde nos reunimos muchos autogestores.
In 2018, I traveled to Birmingham in the UK for the Inclusion International World Congress and the Global Self-Advocate Summit, where I could meet a lot of self-advocates from all over the world.
Ahí conocí a Ellis Herdy, que está aquí con nosotros, y aprendí sobre Empower Us y el equipo internacional de autogestores.
There, I could meet Ellis Hardis, which is who is with us, and I met the Empower Us international team.
El trabajo de Empower Us es liderado por personas con discapacidad intelectual que son autogestores.
The work in Empower Us is led by persons with disabilities that are self-advocates.
El representante de las Américas de Inclusión Internacional es Luis Javier Villarreal de Colombia.
Inclusion International self-advocate representative for the Americas is Luis Gabriel Villarreal from Colombia.
Luis trabaja en Empower Us.
He works in Empower Us.
Él me entrevistó para pertenecer al equipo de Empower Us y quedé seleccionado.
He interviewed me for the Empower Us team and I was selected.
Aquí vemos algunas fotos estuvimos en Naciones Unidas, fuimos 6. Está Luis Gabriel, Jane, Cory, Chaika, Tia, que está aquí con nosotros, y yo.
You can see some people from the Empower Us team, and 6 of us were in the United Nations last week, so you can see them. it's Tia is here with me right now. He mentioned the names Luis Gabriel, Cory, Jaime, Tia, Sheika, and Jaime, yeah, that's all.
Mi pasantía en Empower Us, a través de mi trabajo con Inclusión International y Empower Us, fui seleccionado para hacer una pasantía en Empower Us.
Through my work with Inclusion International and Empower Us, I was selected to become the Empower Us Fellow.
Los pasantes de Empower Us trabajan para apoyar la advocación en sus regiones.
The Empower Us Fellow works to support self-advocacy in their regions.
La conferencia de los Estados Partes, COSP,
I'll talk about the Conference of the State Parties, the COSP.
Inclusión Internacional hace mucho trabajo sobre la Convención de los Derechos de las Personas con Discapacidad.
Inclusion International do a lot of work on the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, the
Todo.
CRPD.
Todos los años, los gobiernos, las organizaciones de personas con discapacidad y otros grupos se reúnen para hablar de una conferencia en Naciones Unidas sobre la convención que se llama COSP.
Every year, governments, disabled people organizations, and other groups come together to speak at a conference at the UN about the convention, which is called COSP.
Este año hubieron muchos autogestores participando y hablando sobre las cosas que son importantes para nosotros, incluyéndome a mí y a 6 mis compañeros de Empower Us.
This year, there were many self-advocates taking part and talking about the things that are important for us, including me and 6 of my fellows of Empower Us.
Aquí vemos la foto en Naciones Unidas. Aquí estamos ahí. Tenemos a Gabriel de Colombia, está Jay, Shaika, Cory, Tia y por supuesto aquí está Dayana de Moldova.
So you can see some pictures from last week here. There's a lot of people, and of course, it's Diana too from Moldova.
En la conferencia de Estados Partes, COSP, hablé en una mesa redonda sobre por qué es tan importante ser incluido en deportes, cultura y tiempo libre.
I spoke at the round table on why being included in sports, culture, and leisure is so important.
Este es un tema muy importante para mí.
This is a very important topic for me.
Yo soy muy activo y participo en muchos deportes diferentes.
I am very active and take part in lots of different sports.
También soy un actor. Voy a ser Hamlet de William Shakespeare en Perú.
I'm also an actor. I'm going to play Hamlet of William Shakespeare in Peru.
He construido amistades con muchas personas diferentes en mi comunidad.
I have built friendships with lots of different people in my community.
En mi discurso hablé sobre mi experiencia en cómo los deportes, cultura y ocio han impactado en mi vida.
In my speech, I talked about my experience and how sports, culture, and leisure has impacted my life.
Dejé muy claro que participar en grupos separados no es realmente una oportunidad para la inclusión.
I made the point that participating in separate groups is not really an opportunity for inclusion.
La inclusión debe empezar desde la escuela.
Inclusion needs to start from the school.
Separar a las personas de gesto no es bueno y no nos ayuda a ser parte de nuestra comunidad.
I said that separating people from the rest is not good and doesn't help us to be part of our community.
Los derechos son para todos, así que nadie debe dejarnos atrás.
Rights are for everyone, so no one should leave us behind.
Hablar en Naciones Unidas fue una experiencia increíble. Espero que mi discurso logre hacer la diferencia.
Speaking at the UN was a fantastic experience, and I really hope my speech made a difference.
¿Qué sigue ahora?
What next?
Más temprano, hoy, Tia y yo lideramos una capacitación de Empower Us para algunos actores de Keystone.
Earlier today, myself and Tia led Empower Us training for some Keystone self-advocates.
El equipo de Empower Us ha liderado esta capacitación alrededor de todo el mundo.
The Empower Us team have led this training all around the world.
La capacitación es para autogestores que son miembros de Inclusión Internacional.
The training is for self-advocates who are from Inclusion International members.
Luis Gabriel y yo estaremos liderando una capacitación en México pronto para autogestores de América Latina.
Myself and Luis Gabriel will be leading the training in Mexico soon for Latin American self-advocacy.
Estoy muy emocionado de apoyar a mis compañeros autogestores en aprender más sobre cómo levantar su voz y tomar acción por la inclusión.
I am super excited to support my fellow self-advocates to build their skills and understand more about how to speak up and take action for inclusion.
Gracias.
Thank you very much.
Para más información, para más información,
For more information,
pueden enviarnos un mail a empoweras@inclusioninternational.org.
you can send an email to the pages that are shown in the screen.
Y para convertirse en miembros de Inclusión Internacional pueden entrar a esta página.
You can go into that page to become one.
Y también puedes seguirme en mis redes sociales. Facebook como Jaime Cruz y Instagram como Jaime CJ.
You can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. I have also a Twitter and YouTube. He's an influencer.
Thank you very much, Jaime. It says at any age you can be a self-advocate, even at his age, at 23, empowering other people that are much older than him to affect their lives, like everyday lives, and live it, the dream. Thank you, Jaime. And last of all, our last speaker is a friend of mine that I've known for a long time. Her name is Debbie Robinson. She's the executive director of Speaking for Herself, a self-advocacy group here in Pennsylvania, the first female African-American woman who has an intellectual disability to run a nonprofit to help people who have disabilities to have voices. They closed down 2 state centers, the Altoona Center, even the Hammer Center, that we helped close down years ago. And just recently, the Hamburger Center is closed down. So people with intellectual disabilities have a chance to live an everyday life in the community they want. So we decided we're going to ask Debbie questions, me and Genevieve. So we sat there together, we talked things out. So Genevieve will ask the questions to Debbie, and Debbie will respond. Can you take it away?
Thank you, Phil. So I want to say just a few other words about Debbie Robinson. Speaking for Ourselves is a nationally recognized advocacy organization that teaches the public about the needs, wishes, and potential of people with disabilities. Before joining Speaking for Ourselves, Debbie was active in the disability movement in New York. She attended the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act in 1990. Now, I don't know how many of you know this convention we've been talking about, the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. The United States has signed it, which is kind of like a baby step, but we have not ratified it yet, which means we're not holding ourselves to that international treaty. But the ADA is an important piece of legislation in our country, and so we're going to talk a little bit with Debbie about that today. She was there in 1990 at the signing. In 1995, she was appointed to the National Council of Disabilities by President Clinton, and she served on the American Association of People with Disabilities and Self-Advocates Become Empowered, otherwise known as SAVE. Debbie works tirelessly to advocate for others and to help others advocate for themselves. So we're going to do a little bit of an interview here to close out our panel. Almost close out our panel, right? All right, so Debbie, would you tell us a little bit about Speaking for Ourselves work, your role, and the types of things that you do there?
Well, I am the executive director. What we do is help empower people with disabilities all over and stand up for themselves. We help them get on state boards and government boards, in their own counties or in Harrisburg, and anywhere else they would like. we just encourage them, we support them, because, they know what they want. And believe me, you heard it at this panel here tonight, as you heard wonderful speakers, and they spoke, but they are, and who they are. And so we, in speaking for ourselves, we speak, and we have individuals, and they share their own stories. Support them.
How many members do you have at Speaking for Ourselves in Pennsylvania?
Right now, around about 500.
Wow, and is that the whole state, or is it part of the state?
Well, it's what it is, because we started SAVE and other committees for, around in the country, we have the Southeast region, and we have in Harrisburg, Pittsburgh, Altoona.
Okay.
So, but this is why, speaking for ourselves, as you heard them say, we help start SAVE, and other, national organizations, because we know that this is really important and that we are important.
Thank you. It's really impressive work that you have done, and I appreciate you being here to share with us about that. I know people will probably be interested to hear a little bit about being present at the signing of the Americans with Disabilities Act, but just could you tell us a little bit about what it was like to be part of the movement that supported the ADA?
Wow, it's, words can't describe. It was thousands and thousands and millions of people, and the CDADA, American with Disabilities Act, signed into law by a gentleman who I got to know very well through Speaking for Ourselves, Justin Dart, who is a gentleman that went around the country with his own money and talked to 50 and more states about American with Disabilities Act. And, and when he came to us, Speaking for Ourselves in Pennsylvania, and brought it to our doorstep, wow, it was just, we got on board right away. It was just, to see him sign it was just, and got to know him, and we had the Medal of Freedom, and get the chance to meet his wife and spend some time with him.
Well, that wow moment that you just said, wow, that's the kind of thing that I have the distinct impression that continues to happen as advocates speak out and other people have the opportunity to be inspired by that, but also to have their doors opened up and kind of say, there's different opportunities, there's different ways to get involved.
Yes, there was the curb cuts. People was able to go and have real jobs. I can apply for anything that you can apply for. Anything that anyone in this room can apply. A person like us on this panel is capable, and I know we are. I know there's no doubt that I can go for the same job in anything I want, anything I want to do in my life. As you heard our one dispatchers say tonight, we can do the same thing.
And working together for inclusive communities is such an important part of advocacy. We were talking about the reception that we're going to have afterward, and I know you were saying that networking is such an important part of advocacy. Can you tell us a little bit why is it important for advocates to network, or for all of us to try and make those sorts of connections?
It's the greatest thing, because we're all the same. We all want the same thing, that everyone in this room, and we should have the same thing as everybody in this room. There's no reason why all of us sitting here that cannot have the same rights, the same thing that everyone in this audience. We are, just because I'm in the chair, or just because this and that and the other thing, that doesn't stop us and doesn't stop me from having the same dream, relationships, going out, doing things, picking my own clothes, doing whatever we want to do, and whenever we want to do it, and whoever we want to do it with.
I agree.
Absolutely. Many of us appreciate that having more inclusive, more diverse, more open communities is important, not for people with disabilities, it's important for all of us. And so it's something that we hope that you're all thinking about, ways that we each can continue to be a part of what that looks like. And I'm wondering, Debbie, if you have any closing thoughts you want to leave us with at the end of this interview here.
We can do it. And no one's gonna stop us from doing anything we want to do. We need everyone in this room, because everyone is part of this. The audience saying, everyone get up and say, we can do it! We can do it! We can do it! Around the world! We can do it!
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie. I'm so glad that you're here, and thank you for that rousing. That was just very impactful. I asked two of our panelists, those two who have traveled the farthest to be here tonight, if they would prepare also some closing thoughts. So our guests from Peru and Moldova, I'm going to turn to Jaime first and ask if you would just give the audience a reflection or a closing comment on what self-advocacy, why it's important, something to leave here with.
La educación es muy importante porque podemos defender los derechos y romper las barreras y los prejuicios.
Self-advocacy is very important because we can defend our rights and break barriers and prejudice.
Además, nos sirven para hablar por nosotros mismos, así por nosotros.
Besides, it enhances us to speak for ourselves.
Así buscamos que no haya discriminación para no separar a las personas con discapacidad.
This is how we aim discrimination to disappear, so that people with disabilities are not separated from everyone else.
Por último, ser un autogestor me permite cambiar el mundo para que el mundo sea un mundo mejor.
Finally, being a self-advocate allows me to contribute on changing the world to make it a better place.
Gracias.
Do you have a reflection that you would like to leave us with this evening?
Ca persoane cu dizabilități să iasă de acolo, ca să trăiască tămasă, da, ca noi să ne bucurăm, ca persoane cu dizabilități să se bucure de trai. Angajații mi-au spus că tu poate tămasă voi muri de foame. Eu le-am zis, dar eu n-am să mor de foame, că doamna Ecaterina pe mine mă scos de acolo. Să eu m-am bucurat.
Okay, Diana says that she became self-advocate because she needs to advocate for other people with intellectual disabilities who remain in institution. He faced a lot of troubles and resistance on behalf of the personnel of the institution. They tried to convince her not to leave the institution because she will not survive in the community. But she said she had trust in Keystone Moldova support, and she used this opportunity, and she made a change in her life. And that why it's very important to tell her story to other people with intellectual disabilities, and to everyone at local, national, and international level, at different global events, and like this event. Only in this way we will become stronger and rights holder.
Thank you. Bill and I and all of the panel here wanted to leave all of you with a challenge tonight. So I'm going to ask Bill if you'll explain what the challenge is.
When you first got in today and you sat down, you saw a postcard. Look around, see if you have the postcard. No, you didn't win free cards. But this postcard is to write down your thoughts, what you thought about this, to help other people with intellectual disabilities who live in your community. Things that you can do for them, that they can do for you. Support them in the community, in their jobs, in churches, wherever you go. And this card means a lot. So when you have this card, you write down your thoughts and you take it home with you. Don't forget, the person next side of you could be that person with a disability you don't know.
So thank you for making a commitment, really taking that sincerely, that challenge to think about what kind of commitment you want to make toward inclusion, toward being a part of making our communities more inclusive. And if you write down your commitment to yourself on those cards, keep it with you at your desk, in your wallet, on your mirror, about how you're planning on including people with disabilities. Each of us have a role to play. And Bill wanted to give a personal thank you out to each of the panelists, so I'm going to give you that as soon as I say to Dennis Felty, I saw here at some point somewhere, just as a founder of the organization, founding president, was really important that the vision that we could all do this together and build inclusive communities is an important thing. So I wanted to also say a thank you to Dennis. Bill, if you want to go ahead with your thank you gifts to the panelists, and then we're all going to have a little.
Yes, we would thought that we would thank the panel for coming so far away. And so, because you see how far they come from Australia to Moldova to Peru, even from Lancaster to Philadelphia. I don't know how that came out, but they came, right? And they wanted to share their stories with us, inspire other people with disabilities that they can live whole life. So what we did is we got this little gift here, and it's not even a car. And we'd like to thank them. So we gave them each a Liberty Bell. Look.
All right.
So this means freedom. People with disabilities have freedom and have civil rights like everybody else. So we tell them, let your voices ring out.
Oh, we got tape. Bill is filming it, but the rest of them ring. That one's for me and Bill.
Thank you, everybody. Let's go party.